I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the Conversation with Al McFarlane. Today is Friday, and Friday is the Healing Circle. Pleased to join with my colleagues, Dr. Bravada Garrett Akinsanya and Dr. Oliver Williams, to create a conversation about health and healing for us as individuals, for us as families, for us as community, for the world. It's a sacred space, a sacred opportunity. It's a place that provides for me a sense of healing and well-being. I hope it provides the same thing for you. It's important that we shift our minds and our vocabularies to the language, the words, the power of healing. And that's what we do every Friday here at the Healing Circle. Before I bring in my co-hosts, Dr. Bravada Garrett Akinsanya and Dr. Oliver Williams, I want to remind and invite all of you, anybody you know, to support this program by becoming a subscriber. The way you do that, go to the YouTube platform. By the way, we're streaming live across 5 different platforms. 2 platforms at YouTube. One is the Insight News platform. The other is the Black Press USA platform, the platform of the Black Press of America. We're streaming across Facebook platforms for Black Press USA, also for Insight News, and also the Al McFarlane Facebook page. We're streaming across Twitter, and we're streaming across LinkedIn. Our goal is to reach you wherever we can, however we can, and to invite you to listen, to hear, and to contribute, to be a part of this conversation. We understand that about 85% of the people that tune in, that watch or come across the channel of the program, do that. We're thankful for them doing that, but they don't subscribe. And so I'm making a special appeal, a special request and ask of you. If you're here, if you've been here, subscribe. Go to the Insight News YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and share. Tell everybody you know that we're having an important conversation right now here at the Healing Circle. And with that, let me bring in Dr. Bravada Garrett Akinsanya and Dr. Oliver Williams. Dr. B, as we call her, Dr. B, how you doing? And I want to hand the program over to you because we have a special way of initiating this conversation. And I love every time you explain it. It gives me a sense of being centered and a sense of direction. So I want to pass the talking stick to you, Dr. B.
Thank you, my brother. I received the stick. And I'm happy to be here. It's so wonderful whenever we get a chance to get together. It's just such a family feeling and a feeling of connection. And that's what this ritual is about. We join in circle, whether it be virtual or in person, but because we're across far from each other by many miles, we join this virtual circle. And the African people do business and family work in circle, because when you are in a circle, there is no beginning and no end. And everyone in the circle has equal access to the center, which is the space of power and voice. So we honor our African heritage by being in this circle, in this important ritual that recognizes that we're all connected to one another. And that idea of consubstantiation, that we're connected to living things, all living things, to plants, the earth, and to each other. And we do this celebration in circle. Another part of the circle, of course, is that we honor the shoulders that we stand on. And none of us got here on our own. Somebody worked their way, prayed their way, and hoped and dreamed their way to our existence. That's how we got here. And we stand on those promises, those hopes and dreams. And we are the realization of dreams for so many. So we honor our elders. And we honor our elders because they're closer to our ancestors. And we honor our ancestors because they're closest to the Creator. So in that sacred space that we share, we recognize the orderly fashion of African people. And in this circle, we share a talking stick. Though it be virtual, and we pass it from one person to the other. And the way it works is if you need the stick and something is burning you, just burning up inside of you to say, you ask for the stick and you get that value of permission to speak. And when we're in the space, the elders among us give us the power and permission to speak because we know wisdom comes from many, many sources. So today, as we sit in our healing space, may the wisdom of our bodies, of our ancestors, of the shoulders that we stand on, may that wisdom infuse us into a place of mental, physical, and spiritual healing. And I pass the stick back to Brother Al.
Thank you, Dr. B. That settles me, and I thank you for that. I'm welcoming Colonel David Rabb, my dear friend. Haven't seen you in a bit, but Colonel Rabb, so good to see you. Before I bring you on to say hello, let me just remind our viewers and listeners, tell somebody else that we're having this conversation right now. Ask them to go to YouTube, Insight News MN, or to Twitter or Facebook, and join the conversation. And if you want to be on the program, send a note. Send a note to Cooper at insightnews.com. Cooper at insightnews.com. He's the producer of the show, and he can see if we can bring you into the conversation as well. We want to be open to you and invite you to bring your ideas, your thoughts, your feelings, your responses to the ideas we discussed today. Dr. Oliver Williams, I'm going to pass the stick to you first, and then we're going to bring in Brother Colonel David Rabb. Could be all those things, right? Yeah, that's right.
All the above, right?
Well, hello to everyone. Hello, Colonel. And
Good afternoon.
how you doing, brother?
Great.
That's good.
Great. God is good.
Yeah. And my sister, Dr. B. And so no, just welcome everyone and interested in seeing where the conversation is going to take us today.
So you can pass the stick or however you want to do it.
I'm going to pass the stick back to you, Brother Al.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Oliver. Let me then bring in Colonel David Rabb. Brother, I haven't seen you in a minute, but we've been getting communication from you. I know you've got a lot on your plate, a lot on your mind, and important work. And it was important to me to get back with you and to you to say, I'm on your side, I'm on your team, and let's go ahead and I feel like a soldier ready to go to battle, and you my leader.
Oh, wow.
And what you've done in the past, I know, is led hundreds of people into the battlefield, and you've worked to save lives and to save minds, and you've worked to support the interest of our great nation as a military leader and as a servant leader and as a professional in the health and wellness field. And so it's always a pleasure to talk to you. You've, from my point of view, famously questioned and talked about and prevailed in raising the question of moral injury. You've broken ground in demanding and succeeding in getting our military services to recognize the collateral damage that they haven't seen as important in the past. And I know you haven't finished that battle yet, but let me stop there and say, brother, it's so good to see you. I'm going to pass the talking stick to you. And what's on your mind?
Ain't nothing like the moment. And I want to thank everyone, the doctors, Dr. B, Dr. Williams, and of course, Al, for allowing me to speak. And it is a great day, right? It's a good day, precious. I have been thinking a lot. And what I think of is what is to come, right? What is to come? And for me, I have helped several or many people when I say many, if I look at my life, I've been involved in, commanding combat stress units in Iraq and Afghanistan. I have worked for the National Center for PTSD and the Palo Alto VA, the Polytrauma Center, and saw a lot of patients. When I say saw, I took care of patients in our polytrauma center. So I was like really fresh in terms of looking at the wounds battle and the impact that had not only on the veterans, the family, but also the community, right? And we are suffering from, or what I'm going to say, suffer. We're bleeding, right? We're bleeding from those invisible wounds that have been there. And, the suicide rate is very high still as we look at the veterans. And what we're seeing now is also, it's not so much um, the war, it's the culture of going to war, the culture of going to war. It changes people. And for sure, it has changed me. And I'll be the first to say that uh, community heals and isolation kills, right? That we cannot isolate ourselves as we're going through change. We can't do that. We're part of community. The information I'm going to share today is going to be uh, quick and but it's going to be thought provoking. Okay, and so chew on this. Consider some of the things that I will be sharing. One of the things I'm going to be sharing is that one, in terms of healing, um, this issue related to moral injury. And thanks, Al, for allowing me to speak on this. I think it's been, 3 years ago? And it still is gaining speed and people becoming more aware. But I appreciate the platform, Al, that you gave me to speak on this issue. Uh, an update to moral injury is that veterans and service members. When I say service members, I'm talking about people actively in the military. Veterans and service members and families and friends are impacted by war. Right? We just are. And this issue of isolation, isolation kills is very it's very important. I was going to say pugnant to our survival as a community, as a family, and as a society. So it's important that we consider this. The, the fresh thing that happened was that we did get feedback from the council of colonels. There's what they call a council of colonels, right? And that is a group. You can Google it. The Council of U.S. Army Council of Colonels. I took my claim to them and said that I believe I'm suffering from this thing called moral injury. There was several factors, but the issue was they didn't know what it was, right? Actually, I got turned down 3 times before I got to the highest level. And one of the things that, I was taught by my mentors were, you got to go to the highest point, right? Especially if you're going to make change, you got to go to the highest point. um, don't start at the bottom. Don't start in the middle. Gain traction by going to the highest point and speaking your truth. And so that's what I've been trying to do is to speak my truth. And so one of the things that came out of the last episode of the work that I was doing is that now a veteran can, or a service member can put in their medical records that they believe that they have a moral injury, and once you put it in the medical record, how do you get it in the medical record? But once you put it in the medical record, it becomes record, you know. And so one of the things that I did is I got it in my medical record, but more so, I got other people to get it in their medical records, right? And this set what they call presidents, national presidents, and so any veteran or service member who has a legitimate claim, and when I say legitimate, yeah, I mean something that if you can go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist and talk to them, but if you get it in your medical record, um, it becomes part of the record. And the VA, from my experience, it doesn't change unless, um, just like Vietnam, just like, I came in uh, the military when they were still trying to figure out what PTSD was, right? And there was a lot of people that got turned down because we didn't have a clear concept of what that was, and it was new and all that, and people were suffering. And so we got to get the language right. You got to get the language right. Now we have the language right, and that is moral injury. So we need to speak our truth. Now, let moral injury on steroids, right? Because I really believe that everything's connected to everything. Everything is connected to everything. And language, again, is very important. A lot of the ills and problems that I believe African Americans specifically have faced over the last 400 years, right? Due to trauma related to being a slave. I really believe that now that we have the language, what we experienced as a group was a moral injury. You know,
Would you sit on that for a minute? Give me more definition. I'm so glad you're having this teaching, Colonel Rabb, but to
mhm.
sit in on the definition that you've created, so that people can understand what is and what you mean by moral injury, and what are the signs and symptoms that a soldier or a person may describe as symptomatic of being morally injured.
Okay. Uh, and I thank you for that. I want to also expand it to communities,
Mm.
right? Communities. You can Google moral injury.
Okay.
Right? You can just Google moral injury, and it will give you a very complete um, definition. So if I fumble on this, because I mean I can just pull it up, but the issue is that and for me, my moral injury has had to do with um, one, stress, right? That's one of the big factors, right? Being stressed out. Um, uh, uh, Confused. Uh, Moral injury for me was being in, having values, but those values do not play out the way they're supposed to. Most organizations have values, right? And those values um, uh, direct how you're supposed to behave. And But what happens when those values do not apply? And so for me, I took it again all the way to the Council of Colonels and said, y'all missing something as it relates to these values that we say we're supposed to live by, and we don't play that out. Uh, and so again, you can take it at large focus or a large view, but you can also take it uh, in terms of what apply for you. I believe that many African Americans and Native Americans and people who have been traumatized, right? They're going to they're going to experience it, and Moses. I'm sorry, what's his name? He's a good buddy of mine. Uh, Moose. Oh my, I'm skipping the name right now, but he hey, he was on the show. Um, he was on our show
Mhm.
about 3 years ago.
Mhm.
Well, help me out now,
Brother
because
from
you're about
California.
Minnesota. He's based in Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Mhm.
Brilliant mind.
Mhm.
Um, Come on now, help me out. Because again, I'm big picture. I don't
Mhm.
details are challenging for me. But he
Not Resma
yeah,
Menachem.
that's what I'm
Resma.
talking about.
Okay.
Resma Mama. Yes,
Okay.
Resma. He gets into this concept of and the reason why Resma speaks to it clearly is because Resma experienced war.
Mhm.
Yeah, uh, uh, he knows what. For me, he knows what trauma looks like because he was in it just like I was. Right? Actually, we were in the same s- areas, but we didn't know that at the same when it occurred in 2000, um, 2004.
Yeah, he was
Uh,
providing counseling to veterans in Afghanistan.
Correct.
So
Right. In
that,
Iraq and Afghanistan. Yeah.
so
Uh, yes, he was. And actually, I was his counterpart. He
okay,
was focused on the military, and I was focused. I'm sorry, it's your. I was focused on the military. He was focused on civilians, taking care of civilians, pretty much. DoD
Civilian
personnel.
contractors, like pretty much
Yeah.
Americans that were there because America had outsourced some of its war effort, right? Instead of
Right.
soldiers doing everything, all the supplies and backup and services to support troops, were civilian contractors, private workers and companies, right? Under
Hmm.
probably what was the big company's name that George Bush and those guys created these big companies, Bright Water or something
Right.
like that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right, Al.
So there were a number of private companies and private contractors providing support and logistic services to the men and women who were actually soldiers doing the work of our country in Afghanistan and Iraq. And Colonel Rabb did the same counseling for men and women in uniform that
Correct.
Resma did for the civilians who were there in a
Okay.
stressful combat situation.
And so from those experiences, we, you learn a lot and you change a lot too. And so if I'm speaking indirect, part of it has to do, and I'll be upfront, I've been through a lot of trauma, right? But I believe that you got to accept some things, right? For me, I had to accept that I had changed. I had to accept that um I couldn't come back home the same way I left.
Mhm.
Right? And you just got to accept it, and that's what I did. But at the same time, this is, and I'll circle back to it. Okay, uh, when we look at systems, one of the major
Colonel,
challenge.
you're leaning out of the
I'm sorry.
camera. Yeah, go
One,
ahead.
yeah, one of the challenge is looking at systems theory, right?
Mhm.
Is other organizations, not just the specific organization, but let's say the total, because that's what I'm looking at is the total picture, right? When I say total, I'm talking like get as large as you can, and then you look back, you zoom in. But if
Mhm.
you can get a big uh, conceptual of what's the challenge is. And trust me, I did that in Iraq and Afghanistan. And, I was forced to do that, to think outside the limits, right? To think outside the limits. Um,
Colonel?
but, excuse me?
Yeah, I was going to say, you said you should look up what it means, what moral injury means. And so what I found was that it says it's the psychological, social, and spiritual impact of events involving betrayal
Uh,
or transgressions of one's own deeply held moral
yeah,
beliefs,
right,
values occurring in high stakes situations.
correct.
Yeah.
Yes. High stake.
What is, can you give some examples of what that would look like?
Uh,
And what?
Moral injury.
Yeah.
Basically, again, I, what keeps soldiers and Marines going is that faith, that belief that one, they're going to be taken care of, uh, that they're going to train hard, they're going to work hard, and they're going to complete the mission regardless of what is in front of them, right? And again, I'm nodding to the armed forces and the family members that had to do that. But we went through a lot of change, and that's okay. But this issue of going through change and then coming out of it, and not having people who have the uh, appreciation or the knowledge as to what you're coming out of, or going into,
Mhm.
that can stress people out. Let me just share that I have spoken with a number of people who are authorities in in the country. Personally, and some of those people, like for example, Dr. Shea, and Dr. Shea is if you Google him, um, he's a psychiatrist.
You dropped your
Uh,
camera somehow. Your camera.
I'm sorry,
There we
he's
go.
a psychiatrist. He's a psychiatrist, um, and he worked for the VA, but he also his focus was taking care of Vietnam era veterans,
Is it like
and
post-traumatic stress disorder? Is that what he took care of?
he did post traumatic stress. Actually, he's the one who coined the term moral injury.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not, he was the first to talk about that, as well as he was able to look at how art was a way of getting veterans to tell their stories,
Yeah.
right?
Through
And
their art.
say again,
Through their art.
through their art. Yeah, yeah.
I have a quick
Uh,
question. I
okay.
wanted, let me interrupt for a minute, Brother Colonel Rabb. I want to understand deeply because what I'm hearing is, and I put a couple of things in the chat. Does moral injury leave you with no longer recognizing yourself? That's my first question. And I have a follow up to that.
Okay. So what it does, it takes parts. Let's break it down. It takes parts of you, and and those parts sometimes are um, parts that are very. You have to excuse me. Wait a second, dear. Can you close? All right, thanks. Um, my wife just came through, so
Mhm.
but I need to be nice. All
You
right.
better.
Yeah. So those parts are required, and most people, in terms of uh, way of evolving and thinking and dealing with,
Mhm.
sometimes if you don't have the parts, um, it can get kind of difficult.
Right.
What moral injury did to me is it just reshuffled a lot of things that and I had to make some decisions of part of it. It was life or death
Yeah.
Decisions about what?
decisions. Say again.
Decisions about what, Colonel?
Decisions such as, for example, um, I had a situation where I had Marines who I'm not who I'm not supposed to be responsible for, but they came into my or close by my sector,
Mm-hmm.
and they were suffering from a lot of trauma
Mm-hmm.
in Fallujah, right? And so my moral injury came because I had a direct order from my general saying that this is the sectors that we want you to cover down on, and when I first came in the theater, it's like, yeah, that's not going to be a problem. I got it. It's too easy, right? We can do this and this, but then change happened. Change happens, and what happened was I get a request from the Navy asking me if I would, help them out. And I told them I couldn't because I had a direct order from a 2-star, as you were, a 1-star, telling me that these were the parameters that I had to work in. Um, and thank you very much. I had to close the door on that. Again, these are Marines, right? Then I get another following week. I get another request from the same person in the Navy, and he said, "You just don't understand. Marines are getting their butts kicked, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right?" And then he said, "And we did our research, and we understand that you are a Marine." And I said, "Excuse me?" And we know that you're a Marine. You're 0311. You're a grunt. You can't do this. And that hit me hard. That hit me
You
hard.
can't do what? What did they want you not to do?
Um, they wanted me to allow to go outside the perimeter or area of my responsibility to take care of these Marines, right? And I said, again, I can't do this. But then when I was hit was, I didn't see it coming. It was like a uppercut. Was, hey, whoa, you are a Marine. We know about you. You were in the Marine Corps. You went up from private to sergeant, et cetera, et cetera. You're a Marine. You one of us. You
So,
just you can't do this to Marines.
so
You're
Colonel
a traitor,
Rabb,
right?
what is
Mhm.
the story that among Marines, you can't leave anybody behind? They're your brothers, and you have to pick them up no matter what. Is that what created that dilemma for you? That
That
was
is
the expectation.
Yes, that was that was part of it. Yes, that was we uh, that's a general um, theme that we don't leave anyone behind, right?
But you were forced to leave them behind because
I
of the
no
rules around you.
no, I'm gonna be upfront. What I did is I broke. I broke. I broke that. I broke that general order. I
Hmm.
did it creatively, but I had to do something, right? My back against the wall. I had, it's like, are you going to be a human being? Are you going to, I mean, hell, these are somebody's babies,
Hmm.
sons and daughters. What are you going to do? So I was put in that situation, and I did the best I could do, and that was to come up. And this is what changed me. I had to think outside the box.
Hmm.
I had to think because of the dilemma that I was in. The issue was I never came back in the box. All right. The way that I think is totally outside the perimeter as most people think. And I'm not bragging. I'm just saying. For example, now this is let me bring this to scope here. For example, um, what would you do? All right. I'm asking you, and those are the challenges. What would you do? Okay. Minneapolis VA Medical Center. Have y'all been there?
I have.
You know what? Nice, great uh, 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 institution. It has some really good values. You should, look at their charter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Um, but real quick, what happened was when I came to work there early in the '80s, as you were mid '80s, they had a Confederate flag flying
Hmm.
in front of the building,
Hmm.
and I I didn't say much. I was shocked. All right, I was shocked. Um, and then other employees were, black, white, native. They were like, "What the hell?" And this is this was again before enlightenment, right? They didn't perhaps know. They didn't, but then perhaps they did know what they were doing. But what happened was, um, I was a middle manager at that time. I was supervising about 20 social workers, right? Um, Nobody said anything, but actually, the only reason I said something was because I was asked, right? The director asked, the associate director that would become director asked me. He said, "Hey, we're having a lot of rumbling. People are upset about the flag, et cetera, et cetera." And then he asked me. He said, "What?" He asked me directly, "What would I would do?"
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I said, "This is," I said, "This is not even a question. We need to take that flag down, right? That flag needs to come down." Right? I didn't say it like that. I was very diplomatic, back in the day. Anyway, so what happened was, um, but I heard the debate about, the county veteran service officers are going to get pissed off if we, because they really want it up, right? The county veteran service officers. Um, research, people who are into research, money, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and so I was confronted with uh, a dilemma, and that dilemma was, what do you do? And it was too easy for me. It was like, take the damn flag down, right? The flag needs to come. It shouldn't have been up in the first place, and it's hurting a lot of people. You need to take the flag down. They took the flag down, and my career at the Minneapolis VA went
Mm-hmm.
down. And long and short of it, right? Um, and I've been holding that, but simmering about that shit. You excuse my French, uh,
We speak French
because
here. That's fine.
yeah, I was simmering about it, and and what brings to a total circle here is because what they did was morally wrong.
Right.
They didn't know it, or some of them didn't know it. I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. But the issue was it was done.
Yeah.
All right. And again, everything is connected to everything, right? One of the things that I think is it's like, I'm struggling. I'm just like everybody else. I'm struggling, etc. Trying to keep my head up and move forward and do the best I can. And you get hit with situations that you don't invite,
Yeah.
but you got to do something about it, right? And
And that,
hopefully you're going to go by principle, right?
well, Colonel,
Values that you were taught as a kid, as well as family, uh, church, and all that, right? That comes into play. But then when you make a decision, like let me share. I was so pissed off, and I'm still pissed off. And you might see, I'm still pissed off. That years later, I'm still pissed off, right? Somebody need to do some research on that shit. Anyway, but what I'm saying is that impacted my mental health. It impacted my social health, because of the flag, and then they they tried to destroy me by not promoting me. So I left. I
Wow.
left. I left the Minneapolis VA, right? And that was the best thing I did. And God is good because then God promoted me twice. He took me to Washington D.C. Right? I'm in a whole different world now, spinning, and so yes, it was painful, but again, I lean on my faith. It was the right thing, and that's the issue. You got to do the right thing. Just like with this issue of moral injuries, you got to do the right thing. A lot
And
of
if
people don't want to do the right thing.
and if you don't do that right thing, that can make the moral injury even worse. And that's what I was saying about Naomi McBar says we have an alien self disorder. We don't recognize who we are anymore because we let people truncate or break down our sense of morality and what we know in our whole soul is the right thing to do, and they break that. And I think that's what I know Brother Al is going to bring Tanaya in, but I think that's what we're heading on. We may have to have a part 2 to this discussion.
I
This
think we
well,
should.
we
I
ain't got
think we
enough
2,
should.
time
3,
to.
4.
I'm telling you, it's gonna be a part 2. I'm telling you that
No,
today.
no, but let me get. I gotta get my. I need to be very focused here.
Yeah, yeah.
What I'm because I've said a lot, but I need to focus, and the focus is that the Minneapolis VA and its practices and procedures and hiring practices um, uh, has been unchecked for years. They got away with trying to take me down, and and I but God made a way for me to not just stay stuck. He opened the door, and because I believe I was brave enough to question, hello,
Mhm.
to question authority. I was brave enough to say this doesn't make sense, um, but at the same time, I was leaning on the things that made me who I was. Things like Jesse Jackson. I'm from Chicago. Operation uh, Bad Breakfast. I'm from Chicago, um, and went to the University of Chicago, Illinois State, et cetera, et cetera. And this is wrong. That's all. I mean,
Brother David, let me do this. We 10 minutes left today. Let me put us on pause here. This has been it's always great listening and talking with you. And let's let this set up
simmer.
an increased and ongoing conversations about the concept of moral injury and also about military service, right? And because I always want to credit you and praise you for the courage that you've distributed, you've demonstrated as a leader of men and women in the service of a country, but also, as I hear you now, the courage that you have to stand up to authority when authority should be challenged and checked. Let me bring in Tanaye Hurd, who is here, who was on the program just to kind of watch. We invited her to jump in the program. Tanaye, good afternoon and welcome to the conversation, the Healing Circle. And though you weren't programmed or planned to do this, I know that you have a great interest in the work of healing through the work that you do in your organization. Love to have two things happen. One is take a minute to introduce yourself and your work in community and in healing, but then respond to this general conversation and to the points that have been made by Colonel Rabb, as you see it as a mom and as an advocate, as a healer in community.
Unmute yourself first. There you go.
Yes. Thank you for having me. Of course, I'm always watching Insight News and all the great work that is being done. So just thank you for
Thank you.
having me hop on here. My name is Tananya Hurd, and I have had the privilege of working with most of the people here on this panel. I'm founder of a nonprofit called Choose Compassion, and what we do is we basically fill in the gaps to impede that for barriers that impede healing. Just to keep that short, but I really wanted to speak to this moral injury that has been talked about, because I, I was thinking of it in a way of war and veterans, and while that is, I think that psychological response that people have to anything that goes against your morals or your ethics, I think this is present, unfortunately, in our community and as a whole. And I, we do need to address that, as far as healing in our communities, just families, and it just goes so deep. And so I just wanted to say thank you for having me here, and I do so hope you have a part 2 on this, because I would really get into this just
Yeah, yeah.
backstage listening. But yeah, I think that
Well, like Colonel Rabb said, part 2, part 3, part 4. I think it's a big topic. I'm particularly, as a veteran myself, and we've had Dr. B's brothers, who are military heroes as well, on, and Colonel Rabb has invited colleagues of his who are military, former military healers, and they're educators and book authors and university people now. So there's a lot out there, and we need to focus on these important questions and the impact of this question of moral injury, not just specifically to the soldier, but to the community, and as Colonel Rabb said, to the culture. And it gives us a different lens, a better lens perhaps, to look at this entire history of the injury of having been enslaved. What does it mean? How do we talk about it? And because at one level, they want us to say, oh, it wasn't us, it was way back when, get over it. I can't get over it. I'm not going to get over it. It's still present in my life right now. It's in my body, it's in my blood, it's in my mind, in my spirit. I feel it right now.
Right.
And I feel that there has to be some kind of healing, not just personally for Al McFarlane, but Al McFarlane personally has to be part of this global healing process that is a reflection of the injury done to human beings by our culture, our society. Dr. B, what do you think?
I'm just saying you on it. And when I think about this moral injury, a little bit earlier, I said, is this connected to what we healers call compassion fatigue? Because you give and give and give until you just, your body, your soul, your spirit just has no more. And you get really tired. And I'm thinking about I really want to talk more about that moral injury and what happens to the soul of a human being, and how that injury comes out in physical ways that we can't really move. We lose voice, we lose agency of our bodies. So I think we're onto something, and I think this conversation is something that we are obligated, morally obligated, to continue this conversation. Really,
Well,
I feel that.
One of the things that I think about is that when I used to do drug and alcohol counseling, and back in the day, there were people that were coming back from Vietnam, and as a consequence of it, they would tell stories. And as Colonel talked about, was the fact that you have to have, and as the definition suggested, you have to have some assurance that people that are sending you into those places are supposed to have your back.
That's right.
And among the things that happened to one client that I had, and there were many, but one client that I had ended up talking about the fact that when he came into the service, they didn't give him a weapon. He's in Vietnam. They didn't give him a weapon, and he had to depend on some of his fellow soldiers when there was a firefight to protect him. One of the reasons that he didn't get a weapon was that his commanding officer was in the Ku Klux Klan.
Hey.
And he went into the commanding officer had him go into his tent, and he had pictures of himself dressed up like a grand wizard.
Oh shit.
And so anyway, there's some additional people that I think of who would be very good. I used to do presentations for family advocacy for the military, and they sent me to Germany and Fort Sam and to do training with them. And so Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Dexter Freeman, who now he started the social work program through the University of Kentucky. He'd be a brother that I would recommend that we have some conversations with, because he ended up providing training for all the different services, and I know that he's got some stories to tell too. So yeah, let's continue to have these conversations, but understanding that sometimes you get betrayed when you're supposed to have those people that are supposed to send you in harm's way support you when you get there. You have to have some expectation that they're going to do the right thing with the fight. Right. But when they don't, and then you're forced to, Colonel, one of the things that I believe is the fact that they knew that it was wrong to have that Confederate flag up there. And for you to have the courage enough to be able to challenge it was an important thing. That's right. But those are fights that we have to take on.
So every time I go into the medical center, right, the flag is gone, right? They have about maybe 30 flags or whatever. The flag is gone. It's not there, but the experience is there.
Right.
Right. The experience is there. And again, if I can associate this with trauma, historical trauma, I'm going to go all the way to its origin, and that leads me to slavery.
Right.
Okay. As a Black man speaking, there's a fear factor too, because I'm afraid something might happen to me or my family, right? Because I'm standing up.
Right.
But the thing is that it's worth it. It's worth it. I cannot be locked in, boxed in. I got to be what God has created me to be. Perhaps this is why I came into this world at this time, right? It's to say what was done is tied to historical challenges that we have faced in the United States, both in the military as well in civilian life, what we currently face in our communities, specifically communities of color. I think there's enough said, but a lot has to be done.
Right.
We got to hold it right there, brothers and sisters. What a great conversation. And we've set up a continuation. And Dr. Oliver, Dr. B, maybe we can reach out to your brothers again. Dr. Oliver, to those colleagues and people that you have referred to, and Tananye, maybe people that you want to weigh in. Let's come back around and continue this conversation. And I want to, as we're talking, just pay respect to a veteran that we lost early this year, and that was Sergeant Ray Robinson. He was on the program a few years ago.
Oh, my.
He was 101 years old and active until he's about 101, and just recently this year passed. But when I think about veterans, I think of him. He was trained by the Buffalo Soldiers.
Wow.
and he was a decorated war hero at the battle, battle to take Italy in World War II. He's one of the black soldiers that were talked about, and their bravery in fighting against the Nazis and the Italians when the Allies invaded and suffered tremendous casualties. And he was multi-decorated. I've heard people talk about what he must have done to have been so honored and decorated and for his fearlessness. So for him and all the other men and women who served our country and who have expected America to have their back, we want to have this conversation. With that, I'm going to say good night, good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. We'll see you next time. All righty.
All right. Out here.